Good afternoon. Welcome to Community Impact Spotlight. Community Impact Spotlight is a ministry of First Baptist Church North Indianapolis. We take the time and energy to shine light on individuals and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. Today's show is titled Surviving and Thriving Through COVID-19 and Beyond. I am Tanya Hill, the host for today, and I'm also the executive director of Abundant Life Institute. We have a group of panelists today that we're going to share some great information and learn how we could come together and thrive through this pandemic. First, Reverend Shonda introduce herself.
Good evening, and thanks so much, Reverend Tanya, for this invitation, for this opportunity to be a part of this community conversation. I am the Reverend Shonda Nicole Gladden. I'm the CEO of Good to the Soul, a social enterprise that energizes individuals and institutions to flourish. I am also associate pastor at the Crossroads AME Church at 46th and College, and a PhD student here in the city. Thanks so much for welcoming me here.
Oh, thank you. We're so glad that you're here. You're a busy lady, and we welcome you being here with us. We appreciate your time. Next, we'll hear from Pastor Kenneth Sullivan Jr.
Yes, I'm so happy to be with you all today. I'm Pastor Ken Sullivan Jr., the senior pastor of New Direction Church here on the east side of Indianapolis. And again, good to be a part of the conversation.
We welcome you, Pastor. We thank you for being with us. Lori Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Reverend Tanya. My name is Laura Henderson, and I've worked for many years working with the homeless and mental health here in Indianapolis and in Louisville, Kentucky. I have had transitional housing all over the city of Indianapolis, which won us several awards for Van Roy properties. And also I have created the first shelter collaboration with my church at the time, Mount Olive, where we partnered with, at the time, Wisher. And we're able to have a place for individuals with mental health issues and challenges to go to when they were released from the hospital. So prenatal care coordinator on the street with homeless pregnant women, helped create the street outreach program for Horizon House. And I could go on, but I'll stop. Thank you.
Well, we thank you, and we're glad that you're here today. Your wisdom and experience is going to be a great benefit to us this afternoon, so thank you. Next, we have Dr. Jay Foster.
Good afternoon, Hill, and thanks for having me tonight, and good to be with this afternoon, and good to be with everyone. I am Vice President of Spiritual Care at IU Health, but really for the last 30 years, I've worked as a chaplain in the healthcare system. And currently my role is to help our chaplains across the state, but also to work with congregations like First Baptist North Indy to try to develop partnerships. So really glad to be with you.
Well, thank you so much. I know being a chaplain in a hospital during a pandemic is a huge job. So we applaud you and your staff and team for all that you do to help people make it through this. So we're gathered this afternoon simply because we have eyes to see that the community is struggling with all that's going on with COVID-19 and its impact on the Indianapolis community. We will discuss tonight the impact on the employment of our citizens, on the homeless citizens that we have, as well as the mental health impact. COVID is hitting us in a lot of different ways, but we're going to make it through this. And we have a great deal of resources in this community, and we'll even talk a little about that this afternoon. So again, I thank you guys for being here. I would share a little bit about Abundant Life Institute. My role here is dual as the Director of Community Impact with First Baptist Church North. That's why I'm hosting you guys this afternoon. And also as the Executive Director of Abundant Life Institute, where we fight to create a world where not one more child is sexually abused. We work locally, nationally, and internationally And it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so that we do know that COVID has had an impact on people who have been impacted by childhood sexual abuse and struggle to find housing even during this time. So we have a lot to discuss. So we'll get right into it. I want to bring our attention to a few stats. We won't stay long there, but right now, it was reported on last Wednesday that Indiana had 3,686 new cases of coronavirus. And on that day, an additional 59 deaths, bringing the total for Indiana to 574,000 people, 574,000 people who have tested positive for coronavirus, and that leading to 8,790 deaths. And this is according to our health department here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So the problem is pretty significant. We are thankful that there are vaccinations available right now, but there's still work for us to do to get through this. So with that being said, I would like to hear from each of you. What have you personally noticed about the impact that it has had in regard to employment, housing, and mental health? And I would ask Laura if you would go first with that.
Sure. I have noticed an abundance of individuals on the circle now more than ever. And I did hear last night that their efforts are being made to move them before the basketball tournament comes. Where they're going to move them to, I don't know, because we've never had, I've been doing this since 1990, and we've never had enough housing. And just moving them from one area to another does not solve the problem. And the mental health is even more prevalent with them out there, and a lot of the services that they were used to, they're not able to get them because so many people are in need of services.
Good point. Good point. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. J. Foster, what have you noticed there at IU?
I was online with all of our chaplains today for a meeting, and one of my colleagues, Chaplain William Taylor, said, people miss touch. There's no one to your hand, whether you're in the hospital and suffering by yourself or on the street, or like we're meeting tonight. Instead of meeting in your studio, we're meeting across this strange sort of Hollywood Squares environment. And so people miss touch and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big mental health concern, but it's a big spiritual health concern.
Absolutely.
Physical touch is most important. That is, that for people who that's their primary love language is really rough. That would be really rough. Okay. Pastor Sullivan, what have you noticed?
Yes, I've noticed, some of the same things that my colleagues have shared, that people are it's really wearing on them. I think that we're in 10 months of this whole, restrictions where we can't go out and do certain things, or we're limited to a certain number of people. So what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of despair. And I just spoke with Steve Jefferson of Channel 13 News. We did a piece. There were 5 homicides yesterday in the city of Indianapolis. And so we did a piece on that. And he asked the question, what's kind of driving a lot of this? There's a lot of factors, but I do think that what we're dealing with COVID is some of the other things that we're seeing in the nation in terms of the political environment and all these type of social upheavals that we're seeing. I think it's causing people to just say, well, what's the use? Or they're just emotional. And so they're acting out in a number of ways. And so people are very irritable with having to stay in the house and limited in their movement and can't travel. And it seems like their lives are just kind of languishing away. The scripture says where there is no vision, people perish. They kind of languish. And when people can't see their way out of things, or they don't have a vision for a better life, I think that's what we're seeing. So those are some of the things that we're seeing on the ground. In addition to that, people have been laid off. People have been out of work. People have been depending on government assistance. It's just a lot of factors right now that's driving a lot of despair.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Definitely that sense of hopelessness puts us in a bad situation. But there is hope. There is hope. Reverend Glad, what have you noticed?
Yeah, thank you for that. Because while everyone else has noticed and named the despair and the hopelessness, I want to shine a light on the spaces and places where there is hope, there is joy, that now more than ever, houses of faith and people of faith, this is our time to proverbially shine. This is the time to be the hands and the feet of Jesus, even if it is through Hollywood Squares boxes, even if it is through virtual. And as much as there are many people who are privileged enough to have access to some type of device that can get on the internet, I have noticed that there is hope. Just before we recorded this session, I was wrapping up our Bible study, which we have every week, and the members just rejoiced that we haven't missed a beat in the entire time of the 10 months of the pandemic, that we've continued to be the church, because God does God's best in the periods where it seems as though there's lack and there's void and there's nothingness. It is ex nihilo that God creates out of the Holy Scripture. And so here we are, unable to touch, unable to be present in community. What better time for God to show God's self fully through our hands and feet and our bodies? So I am seeing opportunities.
Yes. Good point. That leads us right into the next question, which is, have you noticed any new needs or services that should be adjusted? Things that maybe we have been doing in the past that now call for us to make some adjustments as how we meet some of the needs, in particular to the housing needs and the employment needs and the mental health needs, as well as the spiritual needs. What things have you noticed that need adjusting that you may have already began doing? You may already made some adjustments or be planning to make some adjustments that you find necessary. Jay, I would like to, Dr. Jay, I will start with you for that, please.
So on the phone with our social worker who works with our Congregational Care Network program just this week, she was telling me a story of a woman, nurse, who was working with a patient she just loved. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I can hear you.
And that patient had a little disorientation going on, and out of her love, she took off her mask and kissed this nurse, giving this nurse COVID. Nurse is older, was in hospital for months, lost her job, and then when she went to get help with her rent because of the eviction moratorium, her landlord had found a way to work around that, and so her rent was due. And so that's all the sort of hopelessness and challenge that's going on, and fear. On the very good news front, however, social worker told me this woman connected with a congregation who listened to her and provided her a sense of companionship and care, connected her with a resource that helped her pay her rent for that month, and then she got her job back. And so I just was touched by Reverend Gladden's point that in the midst of great challenges, there's also this opportunity for people of faith to come together. So, but out of that story, I'm gonna leave really what I know about, and maybe this would be a good pivot to Lori from her work. But I know that with eviction moratorium, that rent money is not being erased, that bill's going to come due in a few months.
Right.
And so I think there's a huge need for just a lot more resources. And I don't know what that is or how that is. And I'm sure there are lots of folks working on it, but I think that's a need.
Absolutely.
I agree. I know one of the things that I have noticed is that growth in new industry. So myself, I don't like to go to the grocery store anyway. And so now during this time, I really don't like to go. People don't keep their distance. Not everyone is wearing masks, and I don't like to go. And so I think now more so than ever, we are really beefing up delivery industry. I think DoorDash is probably taking off and running. We know that Amazon is off the charts at this point. And so there are some things that we're doing new to meet the current needs that probably won't go away. But Pastor Sullivan, have you noticed anything new that should be done that maybe we have begun doing, or that you plan to start, or you may already have begun doing it at this point?
Yeah, and I want to echo Pastor Gladden. I don't want to seem like the person who is the bearer of bad news. This is just some of the stuff that I dealt with today, and so coming on the heels of that, in the midst of this, I think we can't bury our head in the ostrich, bury their head in the sand, proverbial term or sense. But I see a lot of great things happening. I think technology, I'll even say this, and I know, we got pastors, we're in ministry across the board, whether it be in the building or outside the building. I'm seeing innovation. I think that necessity spawns innovation. And so I think that what we're seeing right now, even with church staffing, what is that going to look like going forward? Because the new church is going to be a church that rises to the occasion of meeting people's needs. I too am a doctoral student right now as well. And so I was studying several books today. And one of the things that we've seen that's sad, and I don't want to go way too far down the rabbit hole, but I think that in this space, we've seen evangelicals that have backed certain policies that have not been seen as sensitive to people who are in need. So the church now is going to have to be in repair mode. And so the new church is going to have to be more engaged with demonstrating how faith really makes a difference in everyday people's lives. And it's not something we can do in a building. I think that, I use this analogy that if we're the salt of the earth, you can't keep salt in a salt shaker. You have to shake it up. So God is shaking up the salt shakers, and he's getting us outside the building. Our church, we started a drive-through pantry. We'd already been doing a pantry, but we started a drive-through pantry. And I'll give a quick story on that. I don't want to take up all the time. We were in the back, and I was serving along with them, and somebody came with a truck, and the truck caught on fire. So the fire truck came, and they put the truck out. So we all scrambled and moved everything to the front. And it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. We need to be making this, set up different and change the logistics. So we started the drive-through pantry. It came out of that. So, our pantry has really been a place where our members can come and say, you know what, as Pastor Gladden said, the hands and feet of the church, where they can say, you know what, I know we can't meet in the building, but I like to mask up, glove up, and pass out and help some people by loading up their cars. And so I think that's one thing. And I think also with us having to be online, it's really caused the church to discover the hidden gifts and talents that are in the house. Sort of like the woman who couldn't find her coin, she started sweeping and cleaning. So we've all had to sweep and clean, say who can do what, and scramble and get online and really make sure that we're keeping the Hollywood squares. We might as well keep that going.
I like that. Yeah. Good point. And it is also, I know at First Baptist, we too had what we would call touchless food pantry. We would load up in Indigo truck buses and deliver to people within our congregation and without. But one of the things that I've really noticed is that when we have our serving line, we are seeing people from all over.
Yeah.
all over the United States and even all over the world. And so the reach is definitely expanded. I think it's pushed outside of the comfort zone that we should have never been in as far as ministering to people who come to us. We now go out more into the world, and that's definitely a good thing. So like making those adjustments and learning to pivot and utilize what we have is a good thing, even for a Blood Life Institute. So that's a difficult conversation. God has blessed me with the ability to talk about a difficult subject because it needs to be addressed. But using it through technology, it opens the door to so many things. For instance, we're having a conference coming up to equip parents to protect their children better. Well, because it's not an easy topic and because many people don't want to have this conversation, even though they know the problem exists, they don't really want to have that face-to-face conversation. So through technology, they can log in, participate in a conference at their level of comfort. They can start at that baby step. Whereas if I had an event where they had to come to personally, they might not attend because they really don't want to hear about this, but they know it's a necessity. So it is, we have doors opening to us, and those are good things. Is there, let me see, Lori, did I hear from you about things that you may have noticed that we need to do differently, or that we may have already begun doing differently?
Right now, I'm currently the coordinator at National Church Residence, which is a senior community, and so many of our seniors are just being forgotten. They are really depressed. So I think we have to focus on our seniors just as much as we do the individuals on the streets and in the shelters. My door is constantly knock, knock, knock. And it's not that they necessarily want a solution. They just want to be heard. They just want someone to listen to them. And so I may not always have an answer, but I listen. And so that means more to them than, sometimes a can of food, because they have plenty of cans of food. And sometimes they don't even know what to do with the cans of food, but just being able to listen and, give that nod of, I understand, I hear you, I don't have an answer. But, yesterday I was downtown upstairs in the 10th floor, and a gentleman was trying to tell the cashier that this is the first time he's ever been without a job, and this is really embarrassing for him. His taxes were behind, and the guy just didn't even acknowledge him at all. And I could just see the hurt on his face. Now, surely he has to do his job, right, and collect the money, but he could have acknowledged what the gentleman was saying. So when we got in the elevator, he began to tell me about it. And so, I acknowledged, and I could see that he felt better because I was listening to him. And so we really have to pay attention more and listen, especially with our youth. Prior to pandemic, I was the program director for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, for the youth. And that was one thing we talked about a lot, is someone listening to you, and they don't have that. And they express that. Nobody listens to us. We say things, we say we need things, we say we're hurting, but nobody really listens. And so that's the thing that we have to learn individually and at the church, to be able to listen and actually take in and what someone is saying.
Yes, some compassion. That goes right hand in hand with Dr. J. Foster, what they're doing with their compassion ministry, and having training volunteers who call and check on patients after they have left the hospital, especially those who do not have family members and who are close proximity to them, because just that contact and engagement from someone else makes all the difference in the world. So that's something that is, at least at IU, they're doing that now. And we're doing it before the pandemic, but really more so now. So that's good. Reverend Gladden, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
No, I would certainly say that I agree with all that has been said, but most importantly, now is the time to cultivate empathy. That as we are thinking about the plight of the human spirit, that what does it mean to walk together, children, and not get weary, to hearken to the song, the words of the spiritual, that we are all in this thing together. Miss Laura, thank you so much for sharing that story, because it really did, it reminded me of a lesson that we hosted a few weeks ago with our congregation. That we have what we call Wellness Wednesdays, where we have conversations, and courageous conversations in particular, to enliven our Sunday celebration, to equip our members to be active in the community as transformative agents to represent, we say, Team Crossroads. Because wherever a member of Crossroads is found, there ought to be the kind of spirit of Crossroads where people are saying, I'm hurt, but I met this person and they didn't even tell me the name of their church, but I want to go figure out who they are. And lo and behold, they will find out that they're connected to Crossroads, because that's the place where faith and life merge. And that every time they encounter somebody whose faith is shaken and their life is perhaps overwhelmed, engaging empathy and kindness it ought to be what we are all about in this season, because none of us is going to get through this thing by ourselves. We are not meant to be spiritual lone rangers. And even the Lone Ranger had like Tonto, right? So,
Right. Yes, yes. Good point. And that just really makes me think of the example that you shared, Laura, about the gentleman who said he never been without a job before. So yes, he is in need of rental assistance, but what he was needing also is, that's hard to stomach. I've never had a job before. And out of no fault of his own, it wasn't because he got fired for some reason. It was probably because his job might not even exist anymore. And then the thoughts of, okay, what am I going to do next? That's that employment piece, because some of the jobs that are lost are things that are not coming back.
Right.
You know, that job won't be back. We have to focus on what we can prepare you for next. And for some people who they might be in that age range where they're close to retirement age, but they're not close enough to where they can retire.
Right.
And so thinking about a whole new career change during the season, that season in your life is overwhelming and frightening. And you would need a friend who could virtually hold your hand, if not even physically hold your hand, and help you through that. I could remember working with someone who they had been on their same job since high school, had worked at that job, moved up the ranks, and ended up the job closed down. This was before COVID, but it applies to what we're dealing with today. He was so stressed and overwhelmed because everybody said, go online and apply for this position. Well, he had no skill set to apply for a job online. He got the job that he had right out of high school. He did not apply online. He filled out a handwritten application. He went and got his high school transcript, and he submitted the application in person. So just going through the steps of figuring out how to do all of this online, and it's not in person, and that's where his particular strengths were. It really sent him in a downward spiral. And it was hard to find what he needed, because people will tell you what you have to do, but they don't always help you take those steps. And so I am sure that through what we're dealing with now, we're going to find many people just like that. They've been on these jobs for years. They have not ever even thought of what else they might do. And the process for applying for jobs now is way different. Because I know people in my age category, they typically have been on the same job. There's not been a whole lot of job hopping. So update your LinkedIn. What's LinkedIn? You know, or where's the newspaper? Well, nobody's looking at the physical newspaper. We look at the newspaper online now. Oh, what? So just even individuals who work in the unemployment office and what they might have to go through to take those extra steps of compassion and help someone get where they need to be in this new day and era, because we're here. So now I would like, Pastor Sullivan, can you share with us? You got a huge blessing, and I know you have great plans of what you may want to do with that. Can you share about your big blessing?
Yeah, we appreciate the Lily's Foundation for choosing us as one of the organizations that they gave resources to. So we want to use those resources just to continue to make a difference, from rental assistance to our food pantry to other outreach initiatives that we have, just to continue to make a difference. Because as Dr. J has shared, the needs are only going to increase. And I think that, we're going to see greater needs because people are, just in their homes, all of that stuff is going on. So, yeah, so we're just excited about that. It's going to help us continue our efforts to make a difference.
All right, good deal. So continued rental assistance and what else was it that you said? The rental assistance and what else?
Our food pantry, we're going to help some with utilities and things like that as well. Our own congregation, and then outside as well. We, as you mentioned, our food pantry, I mean, you would be surprised to see all walks of life, people, background, Black, Latino, white, nice cars, not so nice cars. I mean, you'd be surprised to see who's coming to get food from a food pantry. And so seeing that, and I think that what you mentioned was, this is a moment where a lot of people are having to rebuild their lives, people who were kind of settled, so they thought, or they were going to retire from a certain place, or they were going to just kind of glide on into retirement. And I mean, I feel for a lot of our seniors and older people who are forced to work, and those who can't quite find work. And so we really want to bless people in a dignified way, where they don't feel looked down upon in their time of need. Because I'll tell you, but for the grace of God goes all of us.
Right.
One sickness,
Yes.
one job loss, one, stroke of bad luck. We don't believe in bad luck, of course, as Christian folk, but circumstances can change, so we really bless people.
Yeah, luckily. Yep. When you can't get out and go to work, that savings dries up kind of quick.
All right.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any plans right now with the work that you're doing in the community now that is going to address these needs we have discussed in any new way?
Well, with To the Soul, we're consistently hosting what we call some soul support as we continue to connect our soul stirrers to congregations to deploy research and development for increasing congregational capacity. So if there are congregations who may be smaller, who don't have the resources that a New Direction Church has just been blessed with, well, Good to the Soul is available to increase your capacity. We coach congregational teams as well as clergy. And so maybe you don't have an associate pastor on staff, or you don't have a team of people around you. If you are a local clergy person and you're trying to figure out how to get your community connections happening, give us a buzz, shoot us an email, let us increase your capacity there. But additionally, we are helping about 10 congregations to do some coalition building to address issues of health and wellness through what we have just come out of hosting a learning community. And First Baptist North happens to be one of those congregations that has been part of this learning community. And in just a couple of weeks, on January the 29th, we will be hosting a community town hall where we will highlight the work of those congregations. And I believe Pastor Hicks will be one of those conversation partners at the town hall. You can find all of that information at www.goodtothesoul.com if you are interested in more. I hope that was the answer to your question.
Yeah, that's something new that you're doing right now. Good deal. Anyone else want to share?
Well, the National Church residents, my seniors, they have been so used to churches coming in and providing services, or they come together as a group and do Bible study. Well, that can't happen now because we're level 5. And so they're feeling really despondent about this. We do have a chaplain that's on staff for all of our properties. And so he does send out words of encouragement. I just recently graduated as a chaplain. So I'm trying to help them stay connected in their spiritual walks because a lot of them feel that God has forgotten them. And so we talk about, they want to share that, they went through the measles and they went through all of the other diseases. So we talk about that. So did God forget you then? And so we kind of go through the process and the steps where we're at now to help them feel better about where they're at, because we have some Trump supporters and we have some that are not. And so they don't understand. Some of them will say they don't understand why God is allowing him to do this. And so trying to help them see that this is not a surprise to God. And to give them some words of encouragement, spirituality, and some lessons to read. And then I have a gentleman that lives there that teaches Bible study at his church. And so he tries to keep them involved, and we do pray regularly for the building and everyone there. So, because they were just getting really, really down. And so we do this to try to keep them up.
I wonder if the facility is set up in a way that they could have, a big screen, and just like what we're doing right now, have a Zoom Bible study or service so that they feel connected, that where their attention is focused on them. If that would help, that's something we might can talk about a little later. I know for one of the things that Abundant Life Institute is doing right now to help serve, address some mental health issues, as well as just help people stay on track with what God has called them to do in their life. We're doing group life coaching. Group life coaching is much more affordable for people. It does come with a few segments of a few one-on-one sessions, but we help people evaluate what their current obstacles are and help them map out a plan to get where they need to go. Because all of the things that when there's a lot of new things and there's a lot of change, most people struggle with all the newness. And we have a lot of newness right now and a whole lot of change. And so just, trying to provide services that will meet people where they're at. So these virtual life coaching group sessions are beneficial to people and affordable during a time where it's really hard for people. So we just try to make those changes and do what we need to do. So our next question would be, thinking ahead, how can we assist our citizens in the near future? What are some new things that we need to do to assist them? How can the community help you do the new things that you see need to be done? If you had your wish list of what the citizens can do to help you meet needs for individuals who are in need right now, what would that look like?
A few things that I could speak to come to mind. The first is maybe not a new thing, but I just want to reiterate what everybody said, is that whenever we listen, whenever we care, that we can respond to that person in need with dignity. Just as folks talk tonight, I'm just, aware of identifying with one of those older people who's all of a sudden out of a job and what looked like retirement. So helping with dignity. On a more immediate front, in the next 2 or 3 months, as the vaccine rolls out, there's just an awful lot of education that can be done about the need for to continue with public health measures, to continue with masking, continue with social distance until we've reached a time when enough people have vaccine. And there's an awful lot to help people deal with their fears of vaccine. And so there is, I think, good information that's getting out and going to be getting out further. I'm sorry I don't have that at my fingertips, but things that we can do to help people deal with their fears about vaccination, I think, is an important piece.
Right.
Yes. Yep. That's definitely necessary. Anybody else? What could you use? How could people help you meet these additional needs that you are noticing?
Well, I mean, for me, I run a social enterprise. And so as the CEO of a social enterprise, resources are always helpful. So people can invest in good to the soul. Bodies are always helpful. We're always interviewing for soul stirrers. But additionally, as I started out in the beginning, the abundance of spiritual support is so critical that we sometimes undervalue the gifts and the impact of prayer. And so this is not cliche, but pray one for another, that as we continue to bombard the realm where God exists, in the realm where God is desiring for work to be made manifest, that partnership between the creation and the creator, I really do believe will create more abundance. And so and I'm hearkening to your Abundant Life Institute, that as we pray together, I still believe that the scripture is true, that if God's people who are called by God's name consistently humble ourselves, there's something about turning from some wicked ways. And I don't know, a week and a half ago from the time that this would be presented, there has been some wicked ways of white supremacy and insurrection and coups, all of those things. But turning from those ways and seeking God's face, that then we would hear from heaven. And so just be in prayer one with another and support if you can.
Yep. Not cliche at all. Very, very impactful. Very, very impactful. So the community can come together in prayer. All right, good deal. Kenneth, do you have anything that you would add that you would like to see citizens do that could help you meet the needs that you are addressing with your congregation in your area of Indianapolis?
Absolutely. I think, as it's been shared, I think this is a chance for not only for the church to demonstrate its heart and passion for people, but I think it's also a chance for people to see the church in a different light and to see how they can help and assist the church. And I think the churches that are going to survive going forward are the churches that show they're not just focused on their congregations, but they're focused on the community. We have an approach, and we got several tiers that we actually adopted from Rick Warren. That is, we see church as the core, the committed, the congregation, the crowd, and then the community. And so we work as a core, and then we work with our committed group of volunteers. And then, of course, we have a congregation, but then we have the crowd. Those are the people who watch. Those are the people who look at it. Then there's the entire community that you serve in. I think we see those tiers with Jesus as well. When you look at how Jesus fed the multitude, there were 5,000 people, not counting the children and the wives. So the only way Jesus and 12 men could feed all of these people is that he had, a team. We see on one occasion he has 70. Then he has the 120. So he has that core group of people in the Garden of Gethsemane. Then he has the 12. Then he has the others. So on and on and on. So I think that's the community can embrace a church or churches that have a heart for their community. So, hopefully we can kind of change this narrative of the church being just focused on its congregation and not being focused on the people. There are certain standards, of course, we keep as Christians, and every church has its conviction as it relates to certain issues. But I think that we have to show the love. If you look at Jesus, and I'll end it with this part, Jesus did just as much work outside of the building that he did inside of the building, if not more. And I think that we forget that the issue that the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, Sadducees had, where they had the buildings, but he had the crowds. And so they got frustrated because where are these people going? Well, they over there at that hill. He's feeding people sandwiches. This guy, they're over there to see that. Where, I can imagine the priest coming to church, to the synagogue, like, where the people at? Well, they didn't show Jesus having a service over there, and they had to begin healing people. And he didn't open up some people's eyes and all them to ran with their crutches and all that. So I think that's what the world has to see, and the church can't be afraid to smell a little smoke, to get a little dirt on them. Jesus came from the holy hallways of heaven and came down to where we were. And I think this is a very, critical moment for the church on multiple fronts. And I think you're actually going to see a shift in terms of the leaders that emerge and who are actually the people who are making a difference. I want to share this real quick with pastors. The Lord even hit me with this, and I know I'm a pastor. I just got done preaching. It's hard for me. I got to leave here now. I got to leave, but
before I go,
let me out this real quick. But we're not just pastors anymore. We're influencers, and I think that this is an hour that pastors have to look at the pastorate a little bit broader. We can't just look at it as, I'm a pastor over this flock. No, you're an influencer. So I think God is looking for kingdom-minded people. So thank y'all for all that time. I know I took a lot of time to share that, but yeah.
Good stuff.
We understand because it is beyond the walls. It's that 50-50 mandate. You got to take care of the church home, but you got to go out into the community, the church in the community. You're not just the address. People are ministering to people in and outside of the walls. So that is very key. So if you had to leave our listeners with survival strategies, we've heard prayer, we've heard service, we've heard looking after one another with compassion and treating people with dignity and integrity. And we know that when somebody is in need of a job, they might need more than just for you to say, hey, they're hiring over there. They might need you to walk along with them a little bit. We know that we have people who are isolated, who might need a call. They might need to hear your voice. They need to have love expressed to them in a variety of ways. But what are some of the survival strategies that we would share with people who are going through these shortages with employment and their need of food and never having to have done this before? What are some of the things? Is there anything else that we want to leave with them?
I generally don't provide them with so much information-wise. I say, I'm available. I'm here to listen. So if you want more, if you need more, or if you need information, I'm here. We can talk about it, that you're not alone. Because some people feel that they are so alone and nobody else is going through this, but that's not the truth. But helping them understand that you're not alone, not even in the mental health challenges, you're not alone. We all struggle with some sort of mental health challenge, and being able to, like the gentleman in downtown, being able to say that or say his troubles and his challenges, that took a lot of strength, because how many men do we know that really want to talk about, I can't meet my needs with my family? So I think just being there, being able to say, I'm available whenever you are, whenever you want me or whenever you need something from me, has been the best for me, because they go to so many social services agencies and they're always telling them what they need to do, or you got to get this and come back and blah, 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 blah. And they just get overwhelmed with that. So I just leave the door open and I'm here. I will help you however I can.
Good point, Laura. I know that resource-wise, there are some resources available, and I think we need to do a better job with communicating what resources are available. because I see a gap there. There's a service gap there. So if you promote your resources through social media, but the people who need those resources don't have access to social media, then you're not getting the word out to the people who need it. If you have housing available and you're promoting that amongst your friends and they all have a house, you know, we need to get the message out to individuals who need it. And so that again calls for us to go outside our walls and many times outside our comfort zones so that we can get the resources to the people who need them. So that's what I would add to that. So in closing, I want to make sure that our hearers hear the hope that we have. This is a very difficult time, but we will get through it. You know, there is food available. We want to help you get to that. There is housing available. There's rental assistance available. There are resources available if you have mental health. And everybody just put your hand to this good work. I am a huge fan of Nehemiah. And Nehemiah, he called the people to come together to rebuild the walls. And so what I say to everybody, my call to you is that you would put your hand to the good work of building our communities and helping one another make it through this so that we are surviving and thriving through this pandemic and all that we have going on. There is most definitely hope. And if there's anything that you guys would like to say in closing, I give you that opportunity before we say good evening to our hearers. Reverend Glad, is there anything you would like to leave our hearers with?
Well, sure. You know, I think it's such a great, interesting coincidence that we're having this conversation this weekend as we prepare to celebrate Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday tomorrow. That at the time of the viewing of this, we are a day before the King holiday. And so now is the time to do the intentional coalition building, that to continue the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who did great work, and then the women who picked up the baton, his beautiful wife, Coretta Scott King, and all of his daughters who did the work after he was murdered, that now is the time that we are about our Creator's business, that if we have surplus, that we find ways to share it. If we have need, that we are not too shy to or prideful to say, hey, I don't have it right now. And that all of us are open ears and open opportunities to share the abundance that God has given us. There's no reason that any of us should go without when all of us have what we have assigned in my family house here is that we may not have it all together, but together we have it all. And I just believe that to be true for believers who are given by God, that there's nothing that we should not be able to access together. That's why God created us in this community together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Laura, you have anything you would like to close with?
I do. I like this passage from Maya Angelou. I read it a lot to some of my residents or homeless people. Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination, full of hope.
Amen. I like that. You're going to make me preach. He will move mountains, open seas, cause the sun to stand still to get to you. He will leave the 99 to go get the one. You are not alone. Good deal. I like that. All right. Dr. J, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, the last time I was lucky to be in a meeting with Reverend Gladden, she said something that stuck with me, which was the smartest person in the room is the group. I just want to say I'm really humbled to be a part of this group tonight. And I hope to follow up with, for instance, with Laura and learn more about the chaplaincy work we've got going. Pastor, I'd love to follow up with you and learn more about work at New Dimension. Reverend Gladden, I'm looking forward to listening on the 29th. And Reverend Hill, thank you for the work of Abundant Life, and especially, I'll just say this, it'll make me tear up a little bit, but as a hospital chaplain, I've been in the room too much when there's been abuse. So thank you, for the aftermath with the child or the parent in the emergency room. So thank you for your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having the capacity to do the job that you do. That's a huge undertaking. All right. Thank you so much. Pastor Sullivan, what would you like to leave us with?
Yes, I just want to encourage everybody to keep their head up, to cling to God in this season, and don't let go. Just hold on to God. The world has been through turbulent times before. God is still on the throne, and just trust him and he'll see you through.
All right. Good point. Good point. So First Baptist Church, North Indianapolis, would like to thank you all for the impact that you have on our community. We are so grateful for you. We pray that you take care of yourself, do what you need to do to take care of you so that you can continue to have a positive impact on our community. And may we all seek God's help as we learn to survive and thrive through this pandemic. I thank you all for being here this afternoon, and God bless you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
God bless you.